evening for our Google Hangout.
It's a great place to hang out. It's Thursday. We're getting close to the weekend, just winding things down.
Well, good. I am excited because trust me, I came home today and I called myself taking a power nap and it was 4 hours long.
Wow, you needed a lot of refreshing. But that's a good thing. You can't down yourself for needing a break. You're a busy lady these days, publishing a magazine, doing your Google chats, and everything that goes with your interviews and what you put into it.
I know, and I apologize. Yes, yes. It's we have a little delay, so if it's strange that I'm not responding as fast, I'm picking up a delay. So that's why it's so that's kind of awkward. That's what's going on. But yeah, so it is a lot going on. Exciting things going on. But I'm really glad that you were able to join us for this call and to talk about balancing and just I think your brand and you as an individual cover so much that women need today, such as myself, um, in having a fulfilled life from balance into organization. And I mean, we're just really grateful for individuals such as yourself that's out there to help us kind of stay on track. Because it's often that I am guilty of falling off the wagon quite often. So I'm really glad for you and you know what you do. So.
Okay. Well, I am excited about being here. Balance is really simpler than most people think. It really is. I think most of us can attest that when we were younger, it is mind over matter. And sometimes you got to decide in your mind what you will and will not allow to stress you. So you can control those things, some of them, but not all of them.
It's true. That is true. So, for many of the individuals that are watching this evening, I definitely have to plug this in first. That many people may or may not know that Ms. Jacquie Hood Martin has been my business coach. She's been my spiritual mentor and advisor from the first time that we had even connected via email 9 years ago, basically. So within the last 4 years, there had been a shift in me and in hope, and people want to know who or what was responsible. This is the individual that was responsible for the shift, and she was able to give me, and I can tell you this faith, and I've told you this on the phone and via email or our radio interviews, but to be able to, in our initial conversations, say, okay, I'm going to, work with you on being the CEO. And I was like, and all that was great and fabulous, but the main thing that really got me on the right track is that putting my faith in God first. And that's what you helped me to reel it all in and to know that our faith is first and foremost. So, you can elaborate. I'd like you to share a little bit about, you advising women to the importance of having faith in God at the foremost of your business.
Well, Angelia, you said it quite well. Having faith means you have the capacity to overcome obstacles that are going to be in your way. I think sometimes it's foolish for women to think that because they have a dream or an idea that they're not going to run into trouble. So what stands to reason is asking yourself, am I ready for the trouble that may come my way? And how do I get ready if I'm not ready for the trouble that's going to come my way? I think we learn through faith that more than anything, the enemy would like to tell us that we're not of value, that people won't buy into our brand because we are women, that we have our self-worth has been tainted by things in our past, and he continuously pushes that button to make you doubt what God has already told you that's going to happen. And so faith plays a very big part from the beginning, the middle, and the end. I like to call it the prism of our faith. So at different stages in our growth and development, we can see through this prism called the Word of God and our faith in Him, how we're able to move our lives forward regardless of the obstacles that come our way.
That's awesome. So you said a mouthful there. So there are going to be obstacles. So that's one thing I think, for me, myself, is something that I had to be okay with. How do we, in addition to our faith, how do we just be, okay with our process? Sometimes, we feel like, oh, we compare each other and feel like we should be, like the sister, or, that person is moving forward. But how can we just be okay and just accept our process where we are in our growth?
Well, if you take it from a faith-based perspective, so I'll give you two views. The faith-based perspective says, remember scripture that says you are uniquely and wonderfully made. So everything that you bring to the table is uniquely for you, designed by God for the process that He's going to take you through. And walking through your own process shouldn't allow you to look at what others are doing and have contempt or envy or jealousy, but to serve as a reminder that if they're walking in their purpose, then God is going to allow me to walk in mine, because I'm focusing on how they're handling what they go through rather than being desirous of what it is they're getting while they go through. Now, if you're looking at balance and what happens in your life from a non-faith-based perspective, it's similar. Stay within what you're gifted to do. Stay within your training that you went to school to do, and possibly use what others are doing to remind you that you can do it too, because they've already paved the way for you. So not everyone listening is going to be a Christian or come from any particular background of faith. And if that's your position, it's perfectly okay, as long as you're viewing what you're able to accomplish within your talents and your gifts and your ability, and not looking at it from someone else, because you can short circuit your process by trying to do what you need to do based on someone else's standard or guideline.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because I know when I'm speaking to women, a lot of women that's the conversation with a lot of women, is wondering how to, to be okay and just basically content. From a coaching, tell us how you even started. Where did all this originate from? Just being, I think it's like, oh my God, it's so exciting that an ideal for someone to help us to be able to balance and to be fulfilled, and just, I know, as I said, my life has just shifted. I still have my moments where I'm still trying to, when things, we'll talk about this later too, when things happen, it's so funny, because I was sharing this with someone. It's like, I let it linger on for like 30 days. That was entirely too long. I've cut it down to half. And the person said they generally meditate on their mistake or mishap for 24 hours. I'm like, 24 hours? But we can, you can elaborate on that as well. But that comes from the balance and being fulfilled. So share with us about, how it all got started, how God, this is, what definitely your mission and your calling. But just share.
Well, it begins with the calling that I received for ministry. Many people know that I am an ordained minister, and I've been preaching now since June of 1992. And so I spent 10 years working in the church, helping people discover their spiritual gifts, helping them discover their fit and their path in life. And from that, as I began to move out of the church and into the world, because I don't think all of our gifts are designed to be maintained only in the church. There were people who were saying how they were hurting on their jobs because they weren't getting promoted, how in their homes they were being belittled and things were not moving the way they saw themselves moving at a particular stage in their lives. And so I began to, have a little talk with Jesus and tell him all about my troubles. And, God was like, you are beyond talented enough to work in the church, and I've put a gift in you that can also be used outside the walls of the church. And so that's where my leap of faith began. And my leap of faith, using what I knew about going to seminary and having gone to college, was how do I help people find what I have found? And that's really where it all began. People would always say, you're so calm. Nothing ever ruffles your feathers. How is it that you seem at peace when things are, seemingly not going well? And I remind people all the time, for my perspective, I'm not in control or in charge. And so by letting go of trying to be in control of everything, it actually gives me more freedom to see God at work. And He expands my boundaries beyond what I could have thought to do for myself. And so learning how to walk with God in what you go through, rather than relying on people, can sometimes be your best benefit before you ask someone to come in and help you.
That's awesome. That is incredible. And when you were talking, it brought me to a question that I was in women's empowerment expo this weekend in Detroit. And one of the questions, and I, wrote it down because I was like, okay, when I want to chat with Jacquie, I have to ask her. When you were talking about being fulfilled and balanced, in regards to being successful. I guess it's a twofold question, because a lot of times we ask the question, what is success? But success is measured differently, just depending on who you speak to. But the question was, can you have success, have a balanced life? Can you be successful and still balance everything and be fulfilled?
It depends on which side of the guilt coin you're on. Because many people cannot, even though they're successful, and I would define success as you set out to do something and you can check it off your list as done, whatever it is, big or small. However, there are people who are guilty about maybe having to let their child stay at daycare a few hours longer in order to get to that thing called accomplishment. There are women who feel guilty because their husband has to cook dinner or maybe eat out alone a few days a week while they're pursuing higher education. And so learning to accept certain amounts of guilt that come along with rising to the top is the first dynamic to really feeling successful once you are successful. Because if you're always going to feel hurt or pain because you may have thought you slighted someone, then that's going to be difficult for you to enjoy everything that you've accomplished along the way. So it begins with several conversations with the people in your home, your family and your friends, to say, over the next year, 3 months, the next week, there's some things that I would like to accomplish, and to do that, I require your help. So by enlisting other people on the front end, you negate having guilt on the back end because everyone is in agreement with what needs to happen. Now, if you're a person who has thin skin, it's going to be difficult for you because if you don't like confrontation, you may not like the responses that you get from people that say, well, that means I have to change my schedule. And then it goes to, is what I'm trying to accomplish more or less valuable than what you're trying to accomplish? And so people have to learn to work together so that there's a mutual benefit for everyone.
I like that, working together. Because that's something that it is challenging and difficult a lot, but when you see women and people able to work together, oh, just be amazing. I mean, here with me, just even thinking about my team, is just having the right people and just not a lot of people because sometimes less is more, but just being able to be on the same thought process and they're okay with the process, you know, because that was always the challenge for me is that, oh my gosh, Jackie, I don't want people to be mad at me. I want to make sure everything is okay. I want people to never to say anything negative. And you know, currently reading a book about people pleasing with Joyce Myers, and that was one thing is being able to be fulfilled in my life, and as I'm the publisher of Hope, is I had to be okay with I'm not going to please everybody. I'm going to make mistakes. And how to balance. I mean, I had to be able to learn how to balance all that because I mean, I was tearing the chocolate up, girl. And I mean, I'm just like, okay, I have got to do something with myself because I can't beat myself up because you know I'm still battling. Am I successful? Because I was still, but I mean, I can't. You know, even what you're saying, this man was stressing out with just being okay with that process and just be fulfilled. So.
Well, I think you have said it very well because sometimes being balanced is looking at how you handle the small things. Every day you have to make a decision. Every day you have to ask yourself a question about, am I doing today what sets up my success for tomorrow? And then you look at the processes and the small things that you have to check off in order to make that happen for yourself and for your family. Because when you win, everyone wins. And when you lose, it's a downer for everyone else. And so sometimes putting it in plain English, you know, mom has to do this now. Wife has to do this today. These are things that are very necessary to move us to the next step. But you said something really interesting, that it does require people to have some level of understanding about what it is you're trying to do. Because working with people who have bad understanding, it just taints the whole process. And you know you're going to be in a lose-lose situation. Because I remember I would say to you a lot of times, I'm like, who's on Team Angelia? You know, who's on Team Hope? And so it was very important in the making of a CEO to impart into you that it's necessary to have people on your team. And I'm the same way. We have Team Martin, and we've got Team Roland, and we've got Team Jackie. But at the end of the day, all three dynamics work together because we're trying to accomplish something that will benefit others years down the road. And so it's a part of that process of knowing who's on your team, and the people that aren't on board, they gotta go. Gotta go.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. That's awesome. And when you were talking, I thought about. I remember when I first started Hope, and it's just being able, and you know, I'd like you to share a little bit more too, because you talked about, I like how you put everything in perspective about your family, And oh my gosh, I'm guilty, and I guess I'm going to confess here. But when I first started Hope, it was like I was pouring like 80–90% of everything into Hope, and it was hope, 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 hope. And it was, it definitely was causing problems at home because I was just in front of the computer all the time when I was working. My husband couldn't understand because, of course, I was trying to birth and build. So, often if people aren't familiar with starting a new business, which my husband, this was completely new to us, being an entrepreneur and just, living my dream. And oh my gosh, it was taking so much time away from the family and everything. But of course, over time, I get my sleep now because, girl, I got to have my 8 hours of sleep. And, and often on the weekends, I might dab a little bit into Hope. But, I mean, and I don't know if that's the process, and there again, it's all about balance. And so that's why I'm really grateful for individuals like yourself, because it's not healthy. Yeah, let me let you elaborate a little bit, because I mean there's a lot in that. Is when we're trying to launch our vision and our dream is being able to prioritize our family, our husband, being a mom, wife, an effective CEO, and even having time for prayer. I mean, this a lot of things go into that. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think for certain there are levels of things that have to be explored when you're a startup, when you're looking to build. And, I know your history. I mean, we've been in this process for almost 9 years, and people think that you just woke up one day and your magazine was on the shelf. And they would be mistaken because you don't wear on your sleeve everything that you had to go through to make Hope come to life. And I think that people need to understand that dreams are given to us, sometimes in whole and sometimes in parts. Because if God thought that we could handle everything that went into the process, it'd probably blow our mind, and we wouldn't be able to make it. And so we talk about in the book Fulfilled, because you mentioned about perspective. And it is about keeping things in perspective, that this phase that I'm going through is only temporary. And when I get through it, I'll be on to the next thing. And so when we're able to parcel out what happens now, what happens next, and what happens later, it keeps us from looking too far up the road and discouraging ourselves. Because most of the discouragement comes from within. And when we're allowing that level of discouragement to take hold in our heart, it can keep us from seeing the little bitty thing that's right there that we need to do that can turn the whole situation around. And so for ladies out there, and some men who are thinking about starting their own business, and this is the first time that you've been an entrepreneur and you're thinking about what this thing could look like, you first have to believe that you can do it. Write down that you can do it. And then sit down with the people who are in your circle and say, this is what it's going to take. Because a lot of times we can blindside people with our dreams. And then they're like, this doesn't look like what you explained to me we were going to be doing. And so we have to be open and honest with people around us so they can support us in the ups and the downs. And then we all celebrate together when it comes to life.
That's true. That is true, because a lot of times it's great when God gives you a vision, you see the beginning and the end, and your family and everyone is so excited about it. But then when all the downs and oh my gosh, all the overwhelming, late nights and all that occurs, then it's a different story. So
Yeah.
It's very important and essential to be able to have that conversation. So I'm really glad that you stressed that, brought that out, because, a lot of us, we just, like myself, I jumped out there, just dove right in. Had no clue what I was doing, and of course, over time, we get wisdom, we learn by experience, and when our health becomes a factor, an issue, and stress, and that's kind of what I'm going to live into, just talking about being able to balance, because we are a lot of women, we're just stressed out,
Right.
and I'm emotional. When I'm stressed, I eat, which is horrible. And what you've seen over the last 10 years in women, a lot of African American women too, is taking their health, put that, as a priority, and being able to take care of themselves. And it's all about being fulfilled and having a balance. What tips would you offer? Because I know you're really a person that is active in your own health and well-being. What type of tips and just suggest to individuals, and just as a refresher even to myself, is how to just get out there and do 15-minute walks. Pack your lunch, stay away from fast foods. Just how do we put ourselves back on the forefront?
Well, for me, and as I talk about in the book, is about harmony. I have to have harmony within, because if I don't, I can't have harmony with other people. And it's discipline. For maybe 5 to 7 years, that was a word. At the beginning of every year, God gives me one word that I'm supposed to focus on. And for years, that word was discipline. It's like, I can use you if you would just be disciplined. I'll let you see your breakthroughs if you would just be disciplined. I will give you the desires of your heart if you would just be disciplined. And so it all boiled down to discipline. Am I going to bed at an early enough time where I'm rested in the morning to jump up and do the work that's required to make my business a success? Am I having the right conversations with the right people when I'm prompted, to engage them in conversation about who I am and what I'm doing? Am I disciplined enough to eat, 3 meals a day? Because when you're working for yourself and running your own business, food is a luxury, because you can work through breakfast, work through lunch, and work through dinner. And that is not healthy, because your body stores up fat because it thinks it's starving. And in that starvation process, you begin to gain weight rather than lose weight. And then you're stressed because you're gaining weight. And so there's this plethora of things that happen in the mind that we've got to learn to overcome. And for me, I would say discipline is one. The other thing would be follow through. We go to these networking events and we meet people and we put business cards in our purse and look at them a year later. Our follow through is horrible because so many other things are jockeying for position in our life. Oh, I'm urgent, see me. Oh, I'm urgent, change the baby. Oh, I'm urgent, feed the husband. There's so many other things that jump in line ahead of our dream, and we've got to have follow through. Otherwise, we won't be successful. And so there's discipline, there's follow through, and then be okay saying no. That is the most underutilized 2-letter word in vocabulary. You've got to say no. You cannot be all things to all people. And so with that, it frees your day up to make time for yourself. Because if you're not around to see your dreams happen, then all the effort you put into making them happen is for nothing at all.
That is true. That is so true. And those are the thoughts that come to my mind. I remember working so hard on the magazine and having to, unfortunately, develop, I developed diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And it came from sitting, working, stress. And I just remember when my doctor told me, or when I found out that I was that, oh, I mean, it was just like, I was an emotional mess. Because to be honest, Jackie, I knew I could have prevented it. I mean, it's history, the history of the family. I know I was prone to it. And if I would have made those necessary steps to, because, they always tell you, oh, you're borderline. And I was just so stressed and emotional and just eating and just hope, and just not being balanced and disciplined that, I had it, was diagnosed with diabetes. Since then, I'm still stressed, and I know that my eating is prone to, this is a whole different conversation when we have you back, but my eating is linked to from when I was abused as a child and suppressing that. And I had to, so I mean, I'm on this journey, but it's an emotional journey as well, is to be able to sort through all these things. Having confidence in myself, loving myself, because a lot of times those things are essential in our well-being. And some people may differ or say that's not the case, but in my case, and I know a lot of women that I have talked to who have been abused of some sort, it's just being able to, there again, have that discipline and allowing God just to really come in and heal and to just really work through you. And so, that has really been helpful to me, as far as which I have to walk. I mean, and always having the time ever, because I want to live. I mean, it just be to think that I've put so much time, energy, and hope, and then I'm not here, So I think that all has a lot to do with it. Like I said, the follow through and the whole discipline. And you said something else here was even connection is key. And I mean, that's something that, when you make those leads and those contacts, a lot of times people don't think how important it is just to say, hey, just stop. But this is an email. This is a, friendly reminder. It was, great meeting you. A couple of ladies that I met over the weekend, and that brings to a difference, how excited I was, because when I went to the empowerment, if you would have had me at an empowerment conference a year ago, 2 years ago, even 6 months ago, I would have just been the person in the back of the room. I wouldn't want to be seen. And I would just laugh and, wouldn't give a business card, wouldn't up to speakers on the panel, but just having developed that confidence and that balance and fulfilled like I am amazing, because I am, and was able to go up to these ladies and say, hey, I'm Angelia White, and I'm the publisher of Hope for Women magazine. And that was just so fulfilling. A lot of people are like, oh, that's just minor. But it's been fulfilling to me, because I've always been reserved. People are like, well, Angie, we don't ever see you out in public. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to get out. But I just to be able to do that, and as soon as I got into the car with my editor, I sent them an email, showed them the magazine, and just within 24 hours, they responded to me, and which made a connection, and we got to chat, talk. So yeah, I just have to put that in there.
I think that all of that is important, because I remember saying to you that you were hope, and that by you taking this step, you would lead other women on this journey with you, and that it would be an outgrowing of your own personal self-discovery. And sometimes we miss out on enjoying the journey because we're too busy trying to make something happen, when really the happening is happening on the inside. And when we begin to turn inward and see the work that's happening there, then we can share what's growing to everyone else on the outside, and it actually empowers them. frees them, it liberates them, you know, to the point of saying, well, if she went through that and what I'm going through, then I know that I can come out on the other side. And so for women especially, we wear what we've been through like a red badge, and oftentimes it's not a red badge of courage, it's more like the scarlet letter. And so it makes us stand up and take notice that every woman has a story behind her success. And when we are careful to pay attention to what it took to get where you are, that's success in itself. That you rose above, or we as women rise above everything that we have gone through. I talk about it in my book, you know, that at 11 I was abducted. And, you know, there was no such thing as Amber Alerts back then. You either had to fend for yourself or be dead. And so you learn this desire and create within yourself this will to live, that there is something more for me other than what's happening to me right now. And then also the what's happening to you is not something that you caused. You just happen to be caught up in someone else's sickness. And I think that's the same thing that we talked about before with guilt. The guilt we harbor is not our own. We have walked or stepped into someone else's issue. And so we have to learn how to discover, to overcome how we feel about what happened to us.
True.
In order to be able to move past it and begin to help other people see the value in having gone through it. Because even though we may not see it at the time, no matter how horrible it was, it opens up our understanding that God is above and beyond all of that drama, and he can still have a place for us rather than, as we may see ourselves, as collateral damage. And men have a way of making women feel like collateral damage, and some women in our circles will do the same. But we have to be wise enough to recognize that that happened has nothing to do with us, but every decision we make going forward, we're in control of that.
That is so true. That is so, so true. And I mean, I just, you know, so it was so funny because I just thought about how excited I was when I left. So it was like, when's the next event? Where am I going to go next? So I was really excited. And, you know, and it was just a milestone for me. It was like, I'm ready to go. But I mean, it's just a growth process. And, you know, like, and, you know, realizing, as you said, you know, getting past all the guilt and the, you know, shame. What shame, even that was played a part of just from the past. It was just like you feel like, okay, I made a mistake, so I'm just this bad person. I'm dealing with all those things, and just like all those things have just been erased. And then I was like, okay, you know what? It is what it is. You know, I'm human. I'm gonna mess up. And, you know, I've gotten to a place where it's like, you know, God, why has this happened to me? Why not me? This is what I signed up for, you know. It comes with its territory, you know, and it's what you're able to do, how you're able to process everything, you know, and just be okay with it. So,
yeah, and, you know, it's difficult for some people.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. One thing, and another question I had here for you, and we're not going to keep you, but because we're going to do it, we have to do this again. But one thing is I struggle with myself, and I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but why in the world do I feel guilty when I have to put myself first? You know, and when I have to prioritize, put myself the first, you know, a lot of times if I'm out shopping, and I hate going shopping with my daughter because I have all kind of clothes and stuff, and before I leave the store, I'm like, Mom, what happened to everything that you had? And I put it back, and it's like, well, I put it back because, and I can think of, you know, a million reasons why I put it back, but as women, I mean, how do we get past feeling guilty? You know, how do we prioritize our life and find that fulfillment and balance, and just even just loving and just taking care of ourselves and being okay with it.
Well, taking care of yourself is really important. And we're talking about guilt in the same sentence of taking care of yourself. You shouldn't have to feel guilty about taking care of you. You are the single dynamic that is woven through every fabric being part of life. Because if you're missing, then how do other people make it? So if you're a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, a coworker, we wear so many hats. We're mentors, we're friends, we're BFFs, and so we're shopping buddies, we're spa girls together, we hang out at our favorite lunch places. And just imagine what life would be like if you weren't a part of someone else's life. And I think sometimes we don't stop to really see how much strength we as individuals give other people. Because our friends know what we face and what we go through, but sometimes we don't know what they're going through. And so they need our strength. They need our encouragement. They need our presence in their lives. The same way we draw strength from each other, other people draw strength from one another. And so that's a part of that entire component of saying, I am at least worth a shopping trip to the mall once a month. I'm at least worth buying a pair of shoes every quarter. Do I not go to work every day? Am I not doing what I'm supposed to? Where does my money go if I'm not at least spending some portion of it on something that makes me happy? And then some people save their money and they take a vacation at the end of the year. Some do a girls' trip. Others, just want to go to the Cheesecake Factory, and have a piece of cheesecake. And you shouldn't feel guilty about spending your hard-earned money and your time, your energy, and your effort. You're rewarding everyone else. But when do you get to reward you? And there's nothing to be guilty about when you reward yourself. Because self needs a break and a treat every now and then.
Okay, well, I'm here, and then everybody's gonna say, "Well, girl, you doing a lot of shopping." So I'm on backlog, so I'm gonna have to do a lot of catching up.
Once a month, once a quarter, at least treat yourself. Don't do so much for other people that you're missing out, because then you begin to resent what you're doing. You're no longer having fun doing it because you're not reaping any of the benefits from all the work that you're putting in. And so a part of that process is allowing yourself to feel okay with a reward. We reward our kids, we reward our pets, we play these games and we get a reward. But what are you going to reward yourself with? For all the hard work and effort and obedience and, discipline and, follow up. Somewhere at the end of that has to be a treat for you.
That's true. I remember you saying that with me, that incident, because, you know, went to my closet. I'm like, well, I don't have anything to wear. And that really, really bothered me. It's because I didn't think. So when my husband, you have given so everybody's you forget to take care of yourself. I definitely think it's important for us to be able to give to us, because I never want to be in a position again back where I go out of town or go somewhere for luncheon and it there cause the crime, because I'm like, oh, this person, this, and I was just blessed this person with that, and I'm happy. So that's absolutely fabulous. So it's a growth process. It's definitely a growth process to be balanced and everything.
Oh, absolutely. You have to embrace your own process because no one can speak to you about your journey. It is your own journey, and you have to make certain that everything that you do gives you some benefit, that comes from that journey. Other people may look at it and say you're putting in too much energy and effort, you're wasting your time. But when you see the big picture, sometimes people only see this little small part. It's like a hologram. You look at it and you see this little small component, but the further you step away from it, the more you can see the bigger picture of what's happening. And sometimes we need to step out of where we are and look at what's really happening around us. And it gives us a little bit more clarity, because without clarity can come confusion and chaos. And when you're self-employed, you're working for yourself, you're putting everything on the line for your family to make this dream a reality, you've got to have clarity. And that clarity can only come from being engaged in your own process. And I know so many people who check out of their process. It gets too hard. Nothing's falling into line. There's a deadline that has to be met, and they don't know how it's going to happen. And so you can't check out of your own dream. Everybody else that you gather around you is working hard and for you, helping you make it happen, telling you that they believe in you. But then you check out because the weight of it, the pressure of it is real. I would be foolish to tell anyone that any amount of pressure that they felt was just in their head, because we handle certain amounts of pressure differently. And women especially are emotional, and we gauge everything with our heart. But the more you go through the process, you're able to think with your head first and put emotion to the side and treat everything you face like a business. And so some areas we've got to say, now this is business and this is personal. But somewhere in there, we've got to discover, and that's where the real balance, that's the challenge, that's the work. The work we got to put in is being able to differentiate what is business and what is personal. Because not everything that happens to you in business is personal. It may feel personal because you have some unresolved personal issues, and how a person comes at you can make you think it's personal. But remember, that's small view. We back away and see the bigger picture. It's only business. And so we've got to learn the difference or destroy us.
That's true. And that's something I had to, when I first started, I thought, oh, this is a God thing, this is amazing. And I was so busy trying to help everybody else. That was just giving. And it hit me that you have to be able to separate business to person. By nature, I'm a kind person, I'm a giver. And I had to realize, okay, who do I want on my team? Because a lot of times and I'm that balance of who do I really want, and how am I fulfilled as an owner or as an individual? It's because I was welcoming people that they had an agenda, and so I'm like, well, why am I, doing this? I mean, I want to help everybody. I want everybody to, have the best life ever. And, and I had to have a conversation. The Lord had to really work on me back in, is to realize, it's not about how many people you have around you. It's the right people who have the right motive that does not have an agenda. But there again, you can work together as women. You're on one accord. You have the same goals in life, missions in life. And I'm like, well, God, I mean, that's it. It wasn't having us. Well, how many do you have on your staff? Is it, oh, I have 15 people at Hope. You know, I tell you what, I would rather take my five fabulous that I have than to have a whole bunch of people. I can go to sleep at night and knowing that Jamila is going to, if I'm asleep, she's working, or if I'm going to call my Shandia, you know, if I need something pitched, I'm a, you know, my business person. I mean, and these people love and respect me. And, you know, it's like they don't have this big conglomerate, you know, portfolio yet. That's coming. But it's having that fulfillment. And, you know, and that's where having the balance and the fulfillment and putting God first. It's just so essential. So I mean, I'm happy, you know, and it's exciting. It's because, you know, I remember how broken I was when I, you know, I don't even know if you really know how broken I was. It was like I was in a fish that just was just like, boom, here I am. And to be able to, what do I do next? I mean, I didn't know what was my next step in life. You know, one thing I know is God spoke to me at church and said it's time to live. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I just had that awakening at 35, and I was like, well, what do I do? You know, having that relationship, even knowing how to have a relationship, it's like, well, you can go to God and you can ask Him for anything. I'm like, really? I really can talk to Him on that personal level? And just even that's what, you know, having that conversation with you and just having the challenge that you give me to have that word, because the word of God will do it. That was the most significant and the principal thing into advancing me as the publisher and CEO forward. And that was what our initial conversation was, is to develop me to be a CEO. And in my mind, I was like, this girl just don't know how much work she has to do. I was like, I'm a mess. But I mean, inside, internally, I was like, how do I break free? You know, so those who will watch this and listen and to know it's the principles of balance and the key tips that Jacquie you shared, and and it all boils down to God. So.
Oh, absolutely true. I think a part of that process, though, is you're coachable. And there are many people who are not coachable because they're not willing to be transparent and vulnerable. But God had already spoken to you about the value in being vulnerable and transparent. So it made it easy. And I remember asking you, are you sure you want me? Have you talked to God about this? Because God was revealing things to me that I knew that He had talked to you about. And I think that makes the difference. You got to pair up with a Christian coach or a coach or someone who is not afraid to tell you the truth, you know? And I remember you going through some of those processes, and I was saying, Angelia, it's about credibility. They have to believe that you can tell people no. They have to believe that you're not going to let people walk over you. They have to believe that you believe in yourself and what you're doing. And at that moment, I remember that aha moment that you had. And it was as if, you know, manna from heaven had fallen down, and you knew that you were going to be able to eat a lifetime because you could see clearly what God was showing you all along. But sometimes we have to be okay with letting people walk beside us and carry us and pick us up and, you know, dry our tears. You can't be a good CEO, you can't be a good leader if you're not willing to be vulnerable. And you have to be open and honest with yourself and other people about how what happens to you in business makes you feel. I think that's a lot of reasons. That's one of the key reasons, among probably several other reasons, that women cannot sustain a business. Now, we can open a business. We go through the motions. We get our DBA. We file for our 501c3s and our incorporation papers. We've got the art on paper down. But when it comes to walking it out, It takes the woman who's willing to look herself in the face, in the mirror, and say, I got this. And you were able to do that. And that has made all the difference, because without hope, you wouldn't be able to empower the thousands and hundreds of thousands of women, that you've been doing over the years. First as a newsletter, then an online magazine, and now a printed publication on bookshelves. That is to be commended, all because you were willing to follow God's lead. Yes, you can give yourself a round of applause.
Pat myself in the back. But yeah, and that's, I like that. It's because hearing women who I feel like, have accomplished and achieved such as yourself, and have experience and went through the process, to stay candid, and that's, we have to be okay with being open when we feel like, I remember, I often have the conversation because people are like, okay, well, you have this great big multi-million-dollar company. I'm like, who, me? Not shit. It's coming, because they see the product, they see the visual of hope. And so, Jackie, that had always been a struggle. I'm like, well, maybe you need to dumb down what your magazine looks like. I'm like, girl, I have financial challenges, and they're like, well, maybe you need to dumb down your brand, but people won't think that you have. I'm like, well, no, I don't think that's what God wants me to do. And I had to be okay with where I was financially, and people would come and they would say, oh, well, I have this portfolio and I'm Ivy League and I want X amount of dollars. I said, well, honey, you are in the wrong spot. I said, it's not happening like that here yet. But I mean, I had to be okay with challenges, people see the beautiful Maya issue, they see the beautiful Erica Kim, they see all this beauty, but honey, if they knew what we have to go through on the back end, honey, let me tell you, well, you talking about having a victory lap when all said and done with the magazine, when we hit that sin and everything's out, honey, I praise God and give him all the thanks, Jackie, because I know it's nobody but him that has done it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the reality of what we do. We believe at a level far above what other people do believe, because we know where we came from, we know what we've been through, we know what we could have looked like, but God is always saying, you can do a little bit more. So let me just push you out of your comfort zone just a little bit. And he keeps pushing and pushing and pushing until we're finally out of that comfort zone, out in the open. And we thought we would be naked and exposed, but we're covered. We're sheltered from all of the negativity because we went in favor, we went in grace, and we understood who was really making things happen, behind the scenes. And, for people who will listen to this, they're going to be challenged because there's so many believers who don't walk in faith, but yet there's so many unbelievers who don't even know who Jesus is, who go on a hunch, who go just because they saw something that they thought looked good. And so this will challenge people on every side to really take stock in who they are and what they're capable of doing, but while at the same time recognizing that there's still a greater force, the power of God, working behind the scenes to make it all come to play. Because without people who want to buy advertising, hope doesn't get printed. Without people saying they believe in you, interviews don't get done. Your teams that go out to photo shoots and, do the fashion issues and make all of these wonderful, Hope TV things happen. People have to also believe in you in order for it to happen, but it just doesn't, do that overnight. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on that we don't know about. And for that, I thank God as well, because, he makes it happen. He makes it happen. And we just have to be ready when he says it's go time. Because when it's time to go, that's not the time to get ready. In the law of readiness, we talk about the value of being ready. Even when you don't know what's happening, it's happening. You know, without your
Yes.
knowledge, it's working. You know, things are moving whether you're moving or not, because if God gave it to you, it's going to happen with or without you being on board. He'll just skip over you and give it to someone else to do. So the time to be ready is now. So even though you can't see it, you're getting all the little steps in place so that when it's go time, you're ready to go.
Absolutely. That's true. And that's one thing that I recognize is that, and that's just in anything that's vision or whatever God has his hand on, it's going to go forward regardless. So, you can be a part of it and make it happen, or just, but he's always going, and that's what's so exciting is because he always receives and gets all the glory. This is like, you can't even really, we're just his vessels. We're just the vessels that's
Mm-hmm.
making it happen. So that is incredible. So
Mm-hmm.
Jackie, I want to know before we shut down. I'm sure Jamila probably telling me it's getting close because I can probably talk to you for another hour. But tell us what's going on with Jackie Hood Martin. What's on your agenda? I know it's huge, and what's next? What's going on with Miss Jackie this summer? Are we producing? Can we anticipate any new books, any new conferences, new campaigns? What's going on?
Well, talk about a balancing act this summer. This is the last year of my PhD program. So I am spending the summer writing. But in addition to the writing, God sent me back to where it all got started. So I'm actually commuting weekly between Virginia and Texas to do my dissertation back at the church where it all first got started. And so some amazing things are happening there, and I'm excited about what God is doing. In addition to doing the PhD work and finishing up this year, we launched another segment of our business. Of course, you know about the I Balance Me Institute, where we challenge people to look at ways that they can be more efficient in their own lives, but also at the same time to step out of their comfort zones and really find that place where they'd like to grow. So, with those two things going on, we launched just a month and a half ago Coach Me to Speak. And so, more than presentation skills, we're helping people find their voice, and with their voice and discovering their messaging so that they can walk into the space that God has created that message to be heard. So Coach Me to Speak is going quite well, and I'm excited about the things that are happening there. So pretty much that's all I have, going on this summer, as if I needed anything else going on this summer, and just enjoying, having some quality downtime. I'm home this week. I'm in Virginia, and so I fly out next week back to Texas, which is also my home. So right now I feel like I'm having the best of both worlds. It's being in two places that I really enjoy living.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell our viewers where tell us your website and how they can order your book and all that good stuff, and to be able to catch up with you and all your amazing and awesomeness.
Okay, well, thank you for those compliments. I can be found at www.jackiehood.com, JACQUIEHOOD.com. And on the website, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter, and we send out the e-blast twice a week telling people where we are and what's happening. So those of you who are watching in Texas, I'm in Dallas the weekend of August the 2nd. I'm doing an amazing event with Dr. Sloan called What Do You Hunger For? So we're going to be helping women discover their desires and allowing them to map out what that would look like, given the opportunity to live their dreams. And I'm on Twitter and Facebook at jhoodmartin. So that's where you can find me.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing this incredible hour with us on a balanced and fulfilled life. I thank you just for everything. And we look forward to even connecting with you very soon again, because I'm sure we can continue this one for another hour. So I thank you so much for your time and just for being for sharing with us such incredibleness this tonight. I appreciate you so much and love you.
Love you too. And thank you for sharing hope because we definitely need it.
You have a good night, and we're going to sign out. Thank you.
All right. Take
Have a
care.
good night.
Bye bye.